What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, I've got about $4,500 in books here to unbox. Some really awesome books, but based on one of the books that's in here, I've also got 5 recommendations for books that I think people should be picking up right now for MCU, Disney Plus type spec. So stay tuned. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So when I've done videos like this before, I've had some people say that I shouldn't talk about the books that I want to pick up because I make it harder for myself to get them. But honestly, there are so many books out there, I can't buy everything, and I probably buy too many books each week anyway. If you watch my unboxing videos, you get an idea kind of how many books I'm usually buying, so I'm never really worried about that side of it. Plus, it's fun trying to find these little pockets of undervalued keys that are out there, because when I'm talking about speculation, if you're familiar with my channel, I'm not talking about dollar books, $5 books, that kind of thing. I'm talking about bigger keys that I see that I feel are undervalued right now, that really have a strong chance to move up in the future. So, but before that, I'm gonna cut into this box. There are, like I said, about $4,500 in books in here, and there are 5 books. There's 1 graded book and 4 raw books, and I think some pretty cool books in here. So I think it'll be interesting to see these books, and they cover all kinds of stuff. I mean, I've got DC in here, I've got Marvel, I've got kind of some more, not really independent, but not the traditional, and got Golden Age stuff, Bronze Age stuff, I think, yep, Silver Age books in here, so all kinds of interesting books. So you can see I've got 2 different Gemini mailers that are in here, as well as this one, which is a Slab. And so let's see. I'll start with this Gemini mailer, and I'm guessing there's probably 3 books in this one, but I don't know for sure, because one of the books is kind of like a magazine size, so it's a little bit bigger. So I think that's probably in one of the Geminis on its own. All right, so I'm going to save this one to the end because that's the one that's related to the spec books that I'm going to be talking about. So the first book here is Green Lantern number 76. And this is just this classic Neil Adams cover. One of my favorite covers of all time. I really like monotone type covers. That's why I really like Avengers 57 with that red and black with Vision. But this is considered one of the books that started the Bronze Age, along with Conan number 1 is another one from the Marvel side. Or from the DC side, one of the books that started the Bronze Age. And it's a lower grade copy. It has kind of some rusty staples, that kind of thing, but I thought it was a really good price. I decided to pick this one up, and I have another raw copy that's really high grade, probably like an 8.85 that's going to get graded, but this one I don't know if I'll get this one graded or not. This one might just keep this one raw, but cool book. Always like picking up this book because, like I said, one of my favorites. Now, the second book here is one that I'm always on the lookout for, especially at anything that's kind of like a reasonable price, because it is so expensive. This one's a lower grade. It gets really, really pricey and high grade, and that is ScoobyDoo number 1. And so this is one of the books that I said was kind of not one of the major publishers, but this is Gold Key. Gold Key is a pretty major publisher, but not like Marvel and DC. But this is the first appearance of Scooby and the gang. I have another copy of this one that's you can tell, I mean, this one's pretty low grade, but my other copy is even lower grade. So I saw this one as kind of like an upgrade to my existing copy. So I've kind of followed my rules for that. Is once I picked up this book, I listed my other copy because I don't really want multiples of this one, but it is a cool book that I like to have. Always on the lookout for a high grade copy, but they get super, super expensive, like thousands of dollars as you get into even the mid to high grades. I mean, there's almost nothing in super high grades, but because it was a kid's book, you know, and so they weren't really maintained super well. But I'll do my real quick page count, because I always like to check these books right away when I pick them up. You can see it's still relatively nice. I mean, it's got creases and some little tears, but my other one has more creases and has a little staining kind of thing. This is a Silver Age, or no, this is Bronze Age. I think this is 1970, and let's see, 1969 actually. So 1969 for this one. So just the tail end of the Silver Age. So 1969 for this one, and should be 36 pages. So there's the centerfold. You can see it's really, I mean, it's basically like kind of like a kid's book. You know, centerfold is attached. And so it's all there. You know, there's the back cover. But yeah, low grade copy. Just happy to pick this one up, because this is not a cheap book in any grade. Even in low grades, this is a pretty expensive book, just because there aren't a ton of them out there. There aren't a lot of them available. Pretty low census count, and you don't see them pop up for sale very often either. So that was the second book. Now, this should be, my guess is this is the magazine size book that's in here. Yep, and I actually have one of these on the shelf behind me, and it's one that I keep trying to get nicer copies. I think the one on the shelf behind me is actually a nicer copy of this one, but if I find it in a decent grade for a good price, I will always pick up this book, because I had mentioned this in a previous video. I keep seeing the prices of this book go up, and this is Vampirella #1, and you can see back there I have another copy of Vampirella #1, and I have a third copy that's the lowest grade that is not out up here. But this one it's pretty nice. I mean, you've got, you know, the spine looks pretty good. I mean, looking through the Mylar, spine looks pretty nice, minimal wear. The biggest flaw on the front is that lower corner there. And but in general, a nice presenting copy. I'm gonna have to take a close look at this one compared to my other. I think my other one is nicer, but I will definitely do a comparison of this one. And I can't remember if there's anything on the back cover, like if there are any flaws on the back cover. But you can see, nice glossy copy. You can tell it would do well with a press. It's got some indentation, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, the back is pretty nice. It's got a little tear along this the edge here, but in general, a pretty clean copy of this book. I'll do the page count of this one later, but the thing I had mentioned about the other copy that I have that I really like is the other copy has a date stamp on the moon, and I think that date stamp is awesome, and so that's the thing that I really like about that copy. But this is a book that I will continue to buy copies of this book if I find them at a reasonable price, because I keep seeing them go up, and so I think they're great books to pick up right now. So if you're interested in that type of art or anything like that, it's Frank Frazetta, and that's another big plus with that. It's first appearance of Vampirella. It's a Frank Frazetta cover. Interested in that kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend keeping a lookout for them. They do pop up on eBay pretty regularly, but they tend to go for a lot. So you've got to just keep your eyes open and eventually try to find, you know, a copy that goes at a price that you're comfortable paying. Now, this is the Slab. This is by far the biggest book that is in here. This is not a cheap book. And this is going with a kind of like a collection of books that I've been trying to put together. People often ask what are the books that are in my keepers list, that kind of thing. And a lot of it really is Golden Age. It's because I found that with the Silver Age, Bronze Age books, I can get those books back pretty easily if I want. If I sell them, I can always pick them up again. Maybe I have to pay a little more, but I can get them back. The Golden Age books gets a little harder, and there are certain types of Golden Age books I really like to pick up. One of them is Batman, and very specifically Joker. This is a very early Joker cover, 1944, and it is Detective Comics number 85. And a nice grade too, a 5.0 from 1944. I mean, this is a, kind of back it up so you can see the full, picture. I mean, this is a nice looking copy. I am real happy with this book. And look at this back cover. Like, that back cover is awesome. I mean, just so many different colors. Just the advertising on here is just incredible. This is a cool book. I am very happy with this book. I'm definitely smiling about this one because I've been picking up Joker covers when I can find them. I try to buy these books. They are one of my favorite things, especially from the Golden Age, and so very happy with this one. I mean, kind of like I'd say like the biggest goal for the Joker cover book would be Detective Comics number 69. It's this cover where Joker's pointing guns at Batman and Robin, but man, that book is so expensive. like low grades are like $5,000 to $7,000. I mean, just so expensive. But someday maybe I'll get like an incomplete copy or something like that. But yeah, very very happy with this book. That is a cool book. All right, so now to the last book in this box, and this is the one that I picked up because of the what I'm going to talk about with speculation. And this is Marvel Premiere number 28. And this is the first appearance of the Legion of Monsters. So the books I'm going to be talking about are monster-related books for Marvel, the MCU, Disney Plus, and books that I think right now are really good books to pick up. And I have actually been picking up some of them. It's what I do. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is. If I'm recommending that I think people should buy books, I am usually also buying those books because I think that they are good to pick up. And so, first appearance, Legion of Monsters. I think this one was graded at like an 8.0, something like that. And you can tell it's a really nice copy. There's some wear on the top edge. And there's a little bit of wear down in that corner. But in general, it's a clean looking copy of this book. And I'll do the real quick page count in this one. But this first group of the Legion of Monsters consists of Man-Thing, Morbius, Werewolf by Night, and Ghost Rider. But it's had a lot of different members over the years. So, interior, the front cover looks fine. And then you can see this opening splash page is each one of those characters. So, cool opening splash page. It's not like a big piece of art like a lot of them will be, which I think would be preferable, but so let's take a look here. All right, so there's the centerfold. You can see the centerfold is attached. And the art is pretty great in this. There's a lot of detail in the art in this book. So I'd say the biggest flaw in here is this fold on the back. It's kind of hard to see, so you can see it there, but it doesn't really look like it's too, like that might press pretty well. I'd have to see if it's worth it. But yeah, that's probably about the biggest flaw, is that right there. But yeah, a nice presenting copy of this book. This book has gone up a lot lately, and a big part of that is because there is a lot of speculation right now that Marvel is really getting into the horror side of things, and so that they're expanding the universe that they're making movies for, making shows for, all of that, so that they can have a variety of content to keep people interested, to bring in new viewers that might not be interested in the just straight superhero stuff, that are more interested in something that's a little scarier, going into horror. And so that is what I'm going to talk about here with the books that I'm going to recommend that I think you should start looking for. So earlier this year, pretty much everything went up. Like every book went up in the April to June time frame, just a ton. It was an explosion in prices. Some of those books deserve to go up. Some of them didn't. And since then, along with that big increase in prices, we've also seen a big decrease in prices, and it's brought down the books that deserve to come back down, but also the books that maybe didn't deserve to come down so much, ones that have a strong future in the MCU, in Disney Plus, that kind of thing. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about here, is books that are related to monsters that I think are worthwhile to look for right now. So one of the issues is that when most people are picking up books based on some type of speculation, that kind of thing, they're often buying them way too late. They're waiting until everything is confirmed, there's an announcement, there's already been a trailer, and then they're buying the book. But by then, the book has already spiked, it's gone up a ton, and now you're buying near the peak, and you are likely not going to be able to have that book go up much more in price if that's your goal. If your goal is just to collect the book, doesn't matter. But if you're looking to buy a book to have some type of investment return on it, timing really is very important when you're picking up these books. So what I like to do is I like to look for relatively obvious characters that will likely be used in them picking up the major keys for those characters. I don't buy the obscure books. I like to buy the major keys, and the big reason is that gives me protection when I buy the books. If it's a popular book regardless, then that means even if that spec or whatever doesn't happen, people still want the book. You can still sell the book. It may have gone up a little just based on some general price increases, so you could still sell it for a little bit more if the spec doesn't turn out. But like we've seen with some of these other events that have happened, if you have a major key and there's an announcement, that book can go up a ton, even if it's a big key. Like Avengers #8, that book went up about 300% when we saw Kang at the end of Loki. So you've got a major key that tripled in value based on something that happened in one of these shows. And so that's the type of thing that I like to look for. Major keys that I think have big potential moving forward. Now, the goal isn't to buy at the absolute bottom. If you're always just waiting and hoping to buy at the absolute bottom, you're likely never going to buy the book. You're going to wait too long. Just try to find that book at a discount to recent highs. And then you wait until that event happens, whether that's a show announcement, character announcement, trailer, you sell the book. If that is your goal for this, you sell the book when that event happens. Do not keep holding and waiting. If you buy a book for speculation purposes, you sell that book when the event happens. Now, just remember, when I am recommending a book, I'm not saying rush out and pay any price for that book. You have to have it right now. Look at recent prices, see where the books are selling, and pick a price you are comfortable to buy that book at based on recent prices. I think too often people will get a recommendation and they will rush out and just pay anything for a book. And so you've got to take your time. Don't worry. If the event ends up happening before you pick up the book, it's not the end of the world. You can find another book. But take your time when you're finding these books. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Marvel Premiere number 28. First appearance of the Legion of Monsters. Now this one though is currently on an uptrend. It actually hasn't taken that downtrend like a lot of other books have. So I would be a little careful picking this one up. I bought this book because I felt it was at a good discount to recent prices, and so I thought it was still worthwhile to pick up. But this one, I wouldn't necessarily be paying full market value for this one right now because it is still on that uptrend. So I'm going to talk about these 4 characters first, as well as a couple others. And so I'm going to start with Morbius. I do not recommend buying Morbius books right now. We just had the Morbius trailer. Those books are pretty much at the highest that they've been. They had pulled back, but they have come back up again. And so I'd steer clear of Morbius books right now. I wouldn't be buying like Amazing Spider-Man number 101 or 102, the first and second appearance of Morbius. Steer clear of those. The next one is Man-Thing. I did talk about this book in my last top 10 video, so if you'd like to see the recommendations that I had for that book, go check out my top 10 video. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about that I do have some recommendations for is Werewolf by Night. And so I think this is a great character to go after right now, to pick up books that are key to that character. People love werewolves. They are one of the great types of monsters that people like to collect and are fans of, along with vampires. Vampires and werewolves are big ones to go after. I mean, for me, I remember Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. That was one of my favorite Harry Potter movies. I love that. And part of it was the werewolf. It was a darker story. I really liked that. And so werewolves, I definitely recommend books related to that. So the 2 main books for Werewolf by Night are Marvel Spotlight number 2, which is his first appearance, and I have a low grade copy of that one right here. This is like a, I don't know, like a 2.5 or something like that. But it's got lots of flaws, but it's a cool looking book. You know, he's right on the cover, and it's yeah, it is square bound, but it's a relatively thin square bound. It's a pretty normal page count. I think it's actually 36 pages. So it's not anything like one of those real thick square bound books, but it is square bound. And Marvel Spotlight number 2, that one, I'm just going to kind of pick a grade that's had some recent sales so you can see what prices have done. With a CGC 7.5, that book peaked at about $900 back in the May-June timeframe. It's currently selling for around $700 in a 7.5, so that's a 22% drop. That is a great discount to those prior highs when there have been rumors that Werewolf by Night is going to be potentially appearing alongside Moon Knight in the Moon Knight show, or possibly in some other capacity. So I think Werewolf by Night is a great book to pick up, and his first appearance, you know, this nice, you know, key is at a discount right now to recent highs. Now the second book is actually very similar to this one, and I have a copy, I think on the way here. I don't actually have it in my possession yet, but this is Werewolf by Night number 1, and so I'll throw a picture of it up over here. And that book is very similar in appearance to this one. You know, it's kind of like a picture frame type cover, a red cover. He's on the cover of that one, and it's quite a bit more affordable than his first appearance, but that's his first self-titled series. And so with that, a CGC 8.0 peaked at $586 in July. Now, that was a crazy high sale. I don't remember if there was some spec that had dropped right then about him appearing in the Moon Knight show, but that was a really high sale. The sales had traditionally been more in the $350 to $400 range, but recent sales have been at $300. That's a drop of 49% from that peak sale, and a drop of about 25% from the other highs, the other highs that we saw around there. So again, we're seeing around a 25% drop, potentially more if you talk about that really high sale. So a discount to recent highs when we have the potential of this character coming in the future. And these are both key issues. I mean, you're not going to have any issue selling those books or having demand for those books, even if something doesn't immediately happen with Moon Knight. All right, so the second character I'm going to talk about that's on here is Ghost Rider. And now Ghost Rider has plenty of fans already. He is a extremely popular character, and if you watch one of my recent top 10 videos, I just talked about how the prices in that book has gone down in his first appearance. And so I have a copy of Marvel Spotlight number 5. It's 6.5, signed by Roy Thomas. But this has been a very in-demand book, but we have been seeing prices drop in this book. For example, a CGC 7.0 peaked at $3,675 in April. The most recent sale on October 28th was $2,562. That's a drop of 30%, over $1,000 drop over the last 5 months, and it actually hit as low as $2,280 on October 7th. That's a drop of 38%. And so with a major character like that, one that there is all kinds of talk that we're going to end up seeing that character show up either in the MCU, Disney Plus, somewhere, I think that is a book that at this type of discount, I had mentioned I was actually bidding on that other one that sold real cheap, but I didn't want to spend any more money in that auction. But I have started to see that prices are coming back up a little bit. You can see that low on October 7th, but now starting to trend back up maybe a little. So this is one of those books that now is really, I think, the time to be looking at Marvel Spotlight number 5 as that first appearance for that character, a good book to pick up. Again, never a bad book to own regardless. Now, the second book that would normally be recommended for Ghost Rider is Ghost Rider number 1. This is his first solo series, at least with that version of Ghost Rider, but I've actually seen that book already return to near peak prices. It had a high of $660 in May, and it just had a recent sale of $625. So that's only down $35, a little over 5-6%. And so that's might be a little too late. If you find one that happens to be at a real good price, you know, go for it. But Ghost Rider number 1 seems to have already come back, and so not necessarily a book that's great to pick up right now. But strange thing is, Marvel Spotlight number 5, first appearance, has come down in price significantly, and so that's the one to really go after right now, that first appearance of Ghost Rider. Now, the third character that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to say that this is a character that is horror adjacent. Not necessarily a horror character, but horror adjacent, and this is Moon Knight. And so his first appearance is in Werewolf by Night number 32. He is tied to that character. And we've got a Moon Knight show coming out. I think it's already done filming. I know it was filming. I don't know if it's done, but I think it's already done filming. And that book had peaked very high earlier this year. A CGC 7.5, sold for $3,999 in May. The last 2 sales were at $2,850 on November 4th and $2,776 on October 25th. So it's sitting at around $2,800. That's down $1,200, about 30% from its high. So again, we're seeing this trend around 30%, 25% from those highs. That's where I'm seeing books come down to, and that is where I am starting to buy those books. I actually just bought another copy of Werewolf by Night number 32. I used to have a couple copies. I had a 6.5 and a 9.2. I had sold both of them last year. Kind of regret selling that 9.2 a little bit, but I just recently picked up another copy because I've seen these prices come down, and so with that show coming up, and I think it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a cool show. I decided to pick one up. Now, the next book that I would normally recommend would be Marvel Spotlight number 28. That's his first solo story. It's also just, I think it's a cool Moon Knight cover, but this book has been continuing on its uptrend. It never really took a break. And so unlike the first appearance in Werewolf by Night 32, where we saw that drop, just like with Marvel Spotlight number 5, we see this drop in the first appearances, but these other related keys, whether they're the first solo story or the first self-titled series, aren't seeing those drops as much or have already come back. And I was kind of wondering why that might be happening. And I've been thinking that maybe it's because the first appearances got so expensive that they just got outside of what most people were willing to pay for those books. You know, like how many people are willing to pay $4,000 for a 7.5 of Werewolf by Night 32? But if you can get a Marvel Spotlight 28, a nice high grade in the 9s for $500, something like that, that's a much more achievable book for most people. And I think that that could be why more people were moving to those secondary keys, and those ones really haven't taken that hit. So that's what my recommendation right now, Werewolf by Night 32, because it's taken that big drop. Not so much the other keys like Moon Knight number 1 and Marvel Spotlight 28. Those seem to still be hitting records or near record prices. Now, the last character that I'm going to recommend, I kind of teased that early on when I was saying that werewolves and vampires are the really popular horror type characters, and that's Dracula. So Dracula's first appearance is in Tomb of Dracula number 1, and we know we've got Blade coming, and when you've got Blade, you likely have Dracula coming too. I can definitely see Marvel using that character in some capacity at some point. So with Dracula, a CGC 7.5 of Tomb of Dracula number 1 hit a peak of $765 back in June. The last sale on October 31st was $560. So that's a drop of 27%. The low was actually $504 in August and September. There were 2 sales. And that was a drop of 34%. So we've had a drop from 27 to 34%. So just around 30%. You can see almost every single one of these books, same numbers are coming up. It's drops of around 30% for these key issues, for these first appearances, and that's where I am starting to buy these books again. Now, I do not own a Tomb of Dracula number 1, so I know that's one of those things where I'm probably hurting myself talking about them, but no, I do not own a Tomb of Dracula number 1. I don't own a Tomb of Dracula 10 right now for the first appearance of Blade. So there are some books that, you know, if I can't pick them up, it's not the end of the world, but I have picked up some of these, like the Werewolf by Night 32. I have a Marvel Spotlight number 5 already. I have a Marvel Spotlight number 2, and I have a Werewolf by Night number 1. And so I do have some of these keys. I don't have all of them, but not the end of the world if I can't pick all of those books up. But I think one of the important takeaways here is that you can see it's not necessarily every book that's a deal. There are some books that are still trending up or haven't dropped at all, still near their highs from earlier this year. But you've got other books, big keys, that have dropped 25, 30, sometimes a little more %. So those are the types of books that I am always looking out for, that if you are trying to buy key issues that you are purchasing for investment purposes, or looking to see if you can have them go up in value as movies or shows come out, look for those books that have characters that are very likely to show up in future Marvel properties, and books that have retreated from recent highs. And the price range that I'm looking at right now is around 30% from recent highs. So again, that's why it is so important to have things like pricing services that I've talked about before, Cover Price, Go Collect, even though I do not like Go Collect right now, and GPA. You can use those tools. You can see what their prior highs were and where those books are selling at now. Try to find those key issues that are at a discount. And in the horror genre, the books that I've found that I think are really good to start looking for right now are for Werewolf by Night. So Marvel Spotlight #2, his first appearance, and Werewolf by Night #1, his first solo story. Then for Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight #5. Then for Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night #32, his first appearance. And then lastly for Dracula, his first appearance in Tomb of Dracula #1. So let me know in the comments section, are there any books that you're currently speculating on, that you're trying to pick up? Maybe some horror characters that I didn't touch on that you think have good books that have come down in price that are good to go after right now? Let me know in the comments. So if you found this video useful, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here if you'd like to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.